Greetings. Welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. I'm your host, Ryan Craven, and our guest today is Tricia Kerns. Tricia has over 18 years of experience in the operations and supply chain management industry and is managed in various fields, including operations, manufacturing, material management, distribution, and warehouse and transportation. She holds multiple industry certifications, including a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. She's a faculty member of Governor State University, and her research is focused on small and medium-sized manufacturing companies and their ability to focus on the global economy. She is also an independent business consultant with the university and works with various industries to help improve their organizations. Tricia is also the Associate Director of the Supply Chain Innovation Center and Business Incubator through the Illinois Innovation Network, a state-funded center promoting innovation and contributing to the economic and workforce development of Chicago's Southland region. Tricia, thanks for joining us today. All right, Tricia, thanks for being here today and spend some time and answering some of the questions we have for you.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, thank you so much for taking some time and inviting me to participate in this program. I certainly look forward to talking with you about some of the ideas with our businesses here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll just kind of jump right into, kind of answering that first question we talked about a little bit of, how can companies stay competitive? Always thinking about, the value add to the customers, remaining flexible, and really how important that has really been showcased during COVID and impacts that it has had, domestically and globally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. If there's ever been a time that a company has not evaluated their business strategy, they most likely have done it today. There are many businesses out there enjoying double-digit growth. I think about some of our local grocery stores. I think about e-commerce and how Amazon's going down my road almost every day, sometimes several times a day. But really, when we think about companies focusing in internal, what are we good at? What are those strengths that we really have, in many cases, lost focus on? Oftentimes, companies, if they're doing well, they might be looking at all kinds of different ways to remain in business. But frankly, I like to say when we are in an economy like this, look indoors. What is happening at our current company today? What are we good at? I also like to think about flexibility and how companies today really need to think about how well am I adapting to what my marketplace is doing? And that might, in fact, include what am I doing today with my customer base? And is there other customers in my marketplace that I haven't even tapped into that maybe a competitor isn't doing so good at?
And especially now with, I think those highlight, I've been in positions where you're always just so busy that you don't have the opportunity to even stop and really think and answer those questions because you're just kind of grinding out every day. And so, that's one of potentially the perks perhaps of kind of the situation we find ourselves. And so you mentioned, kind of having those companies look internally, focusing a little bit on kind of what they do well. And, kind of can you explain a little bit of how they might start doing that?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I like to tell companies that I actually do consulting work with, or just in general, is let's start by talking to your customers. What is happening with your current customer base? Are they seeing a decline in business? Are they seeing other opportunities? I also like to say, let's look internally at your own people, your own employees and teams. What are they doing to expand business? For example, sales and marketing might say there's a tremendous opportunity offshore. We need to figure out how to set up presence outside of the United States. Now, how we do that, several different components on how to do that, of course, but I also want to bring up is your suppliers. We sometimes forget that our suppliers are our partners. And hopefully companies have treated your suppliers as partners and not the best price wins, because oftentimes your suppliers are just an extension of your business. What are your suppliers seeing in your marketplace? What kind of opportunities do they see coming that maybe you can participate in? or you can start networking and collaborating with, new customers, again, whether it be domestic or international.
Well, and speaking to your point of suppliers as well, now is the time to perhaps look at what other opportunities, additional suppliers or different suppliers can present to you. They're looking for new opportunities and partners as well. And kind of to your point, my stepdad has his own small business, and they make kind of a specialty item. And once really COVID kind of started getting off the ground and realizing that the majority of, what they need to produce this item comes from only a handful of locations. And as they continue to get impacted, it started to potentially impact his business. Luckily, he's at it long enough and has had enough foresight to, he doesn't rely on just having one supplier. He had relationships with 2 or 3 that could provide him with this product. And when one was kind of starting to back off, he was able to kind of pivot quickly and order more from his other supplier, and without having to go through the whole process of research and building that relationship. So, kind of having that flexibility, to your point again, is extremely important.
Yeah, the whole single sourced idea. That sometimes companies want to stay focused on and say, no, I've got one supplier. I just want to stick with that one supplier. And I believe our marketplace changes. Sometimes we want to tell businesses, that's the direction to go, get your best pricing, build that relationship. But let's not forget, if something were to happen to that one supplier, and that is a critical component, you are shut down. And that's where I like to say at least 2. And if it means that you have a domestic supplier and an international supplier, it can give you an opportunity to kind of branch off into a different marketplace. When we think about our partners, I had spent 20 years in business, and I was a firm believer in that we should never be single sourced. Even if it was a unique item, split a purchase order and stay focused on keeping supply from both, keeping both partners healthy, if you would, from a business perspective. So your stepdad's thinking correctly, without a doubt.
And kind of speaking to that too, kind of getting into that global customer side of it. How many companies have some? We've talked to different folks that advise small businesses, and how they get started selling global, overseas is, they might just have something they're selling out of their house, and all of a sudden, they've got a website, and the website's getting hits from abroad. And, but kind of speaking to that global customer, can you answer some of that questions on, how companies should engage them or talk to them, and maybe even some of the reasons of why or why not?
Sure, absolutely. I remember a story. It really struck me during my dissertation. I did research with a company actually here in Illinois, and I said, how do you have such a presence? They were, most of their business was offshore and not here in the United States. I said, how did you get started? And this was well before the internet. The owner of the company said, I've got to figure out a way to sell our product outside of the United States. I got on an airplane, took a very long trip, and walked into a phone booth in China and started making phone calls, and just started networking. And literally the story goes is, I would say, if I remember correctly, it was well over 50% of their business was sold offshore. They had that big of a risk to take that many years ago. Now today, with the internet, wow, what a change. And over the years, I was excited to see how easy it was to do business offshore. And a lot of the networking that we do here in the United States with some of our professional organizations, going to some of our conferences, our trade shows, a lot of those kind of activities bring a different perspective. I actually participated with Moraine Valley Community College, where we brought manufacturing in, small and medium-sized manufacturing companies together in a room once a month to have a good discussion about what their business looked like. Now, a lot of people might say, there's no way I'm going to share that. And, there was something to be said in that room where we did healthy discussion and debate about topics and sharing contacts, sharing potential customers, talking about supply base, conferences, learning about some of the opportunities that you would only read about in the newspaper. Frankly, Ryan, I think it's about risk taking. And it's about, sometimes we are successful and sometimes not. But the point is how do we start to see that offshore customer? How do we participate? And it may mean we get on an airplane, probably post-COVID, and fly over and, say, hey, this is me. This is my company. Talk to me about what opportunities are here.
Yeah. And, one of the things we found that isn't as common knowledge or easily accessible as you would think, but it's out there is, there's a lot of organizations at the state level, at the federal level, that want to help you go overseas and have tons of expertise in the research, the market research, the development, contacts, so that you don't have to necessarily be the one to fly over in a phone book, in China and just go through and answer those questions. A lot of growth has happened in that area. The government and the states, they want to see you do that, and they've got a lot of resources to help. Our Small Business Development Council in Indiana has a lot of those, and they partner with the Department of Commerce, and there's a lot of those resources to help mitigate some of that upfront risk for you. Although I think with any business venture, there's always a certain component if you're spending energy and time and effort looking in another direction, but you don't have to do it all on your own anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So the state of Illinois invests in all of their public universities, and I'm happy to announce in 2019, Governor State became the home of our new supply chain innovation and business incubator. And so this particular hub on our campus is focused on supply chain management. We have a board of directors from all different areas of supply chain. And in many cases, a lot of the collaboration within our own community is taking place, just as you've just described, where business leaders are coming in, small businesses are coming in, even those folks that just want to get into this area of business. And talking about, hey, how do I go about this? Small Business Center, the Women's Small Business Center, absolutely several avenues you can take if you're interested, for sure.
Yeah, and to kind of expand on that, one of the topics that goes into this conversation as well is, maybe you're really good at providing and adding value for your local customers, and what they want, you're dialed in, but different cultures have different things that they place importance on. Kind of speak a little bit of how a company might think about adding that value to a global customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So what our customers need here in the United States could look very different. I know when we were doing business in some of the companies that I worked at offshore, we oftentimes found ourselves doing a lot of customized work. And again, through those networks, we learned very carefully to listen. That opening up our typical catalog of here's our 500 items and options we can offer, we said, hey, let's listen first to what our customers are looking for. Maybe that standard item that we're selling to everyone in the United States isn't what we need. And in many cases, that was true. We found ourselves in marketplaces where customers had a different perspective. And it really took our sales and marketing folks to really listen for, what kind of opportunity do we have? But again, that all had to do with that risk taking and being involved in business and really being open to that flexibility that we've talked about.
Yeah, and that's a huge component of kind of what we do in our offices is just raising the awareness of the value of international, skills and competencies. Just it does that right there. It changes and shifts your perspective a little bit. It makes you more open to ideas. One great example that we've heard of is a local Indiana manufacturer produces and exports a lot of their products overseas, but how that industry operates overseas is different than how it operates here, and it forced them to innovate on some new products and new technologies, which helped get them into that market segment but then they were able to bring that piece and that technology back to what they were doing locally and find other ways to, implement that domestically. So, it's not just what you can do for, the other, on the global scale. It's what, those cultures can also perhaps innovate and share with you. But to your point, you have to be open to that.
That's right. That's right. And again, it's about taking that risk. And I've seen many products that we've introduced offshore. And you're absolutely right. Coming back to the United States, we would never have thought a marketplace would pick up on some of our products. And the next thing you know, it's taken off here in the United States. So yeah, absolutely good point. Taking that risk, listening for that customer and what that customer's desires are. What does that marketplace look like?
And then kind of next follow up to all that, including the risk and, the time spent and the capital and the investment, is, identifying that that's an area that you want to get into, but, do you have the capability, the workforce, the employees that can confidently go and engage, in that region or in that area? And how do you go about developing those staff and employees so you can go do that?
Your workforce investment. We talk about it all of the time in the classroom, as well as some of the businesses that we do work with. What are we doing to invest in our people? And how do we tap into that talent that oftentimes, it's like a hidden gem inside of an organization? We'll have business leaders come in and say, I'm having a hard time keeping people. And I say, how are you investing in your employees? What kind of voice do they have? Are you investing in them? I think we've talked about the idea it's not just the paycheck anymore. A lot of the companies over the years really felt like if I just paid my employees well, they not only stayed, but they gave me the best that they could. It's not the case. It's all about what that experience is. How are we maximizing employees? They want to use the skills, the training. I tell my students all the time, make sure your hand goes up first. Be the first to evaluate a process or a product, being a part of that team. So investing, some of our business leaders really need to think about how am I investing in my workforce? And again, that's education and training as well.
Yeah, we've even seen a few kind of our local good sized manufacturers in Indiana. There might be in smaller, kind of more rural areas, but they do international sales. And so, one of the things that the head of that department does is they go to the high schools and pitch the importance of, those language skills and the development skills. And even if it's just at that local level, it's something that kind of plants that seed, and it's important, and it can help them grow and into industries that they wouldn't even normally think of.
Absolutely. And let's talk about mentoring at the high school level. Let's talk about those companies that are investing in those high school students, getting them interested in some of their engineering jobs or their operations management or supply chain jobs. Let's talk about, how they're figuring out ways to stay connected with those students, to kind of help them as they move into the college age, and then, providing a job after that. At Governor State, we have internships that we are working with local companies and businesses, and they're coming in saying, this is what we're looking for in our workforce. And we're providing those same employees saying, let's stay connected here. And how do we stay connected with those employees, students, all the way through until they've landed that position. And let's not forget, even after they have earned that position and have done well, the continuing education that takes place and that business partnership that means so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And to, some of the companies and smaller businesses out there that might not know too, if you are interested in an intern, there's a lot of programs and opportunities out there that are happy to fund part of that, or if you can get enough of them together to cover your intern for you, it's a burden that you don't necessarily have to shoulder all on your own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we at Governor State University, we participate with the students with their internships. We actually apply college credit, and that helps us not just help the student be successful, but builds that partnership that we want as a university with our businesses. Businesses do well, communities do well. Just as we think about our system, everyone does well. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tricia. Do you have any other thoughts or kind of comments for our listeners?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you. It's a hot topic these days. And like I said, those companies that have really thought outside the box and found ways to be flexible, I really see a future for them, without a doubt. Thank you again.
Yep, thank you. That's it for this edition of Cyber Focus. For future suggestions on topics or questions, please send us a note at cyber@indiana.edu.